Good evening. Let us begin just where we find ourselves, because there is no other honest place to start. Your mind has been busy, planning the next conversation, rehearsing a defense to something not yet said, going back to a scene long finished to adjust a word that cannot be changed, measuring, fearing, justifying, arranging. And I know it because I have lived in that same house with the same restless tenant. Now then, we must never use the words right and wrong about this. There are states and stages of consciousness, you see, and the noisy mind is not bad, it is not sinful. It is only a level attempting to govern life by itself. That is all. Do not scold it. Do not scold yourself. The question before us is not how to win an argument with the mind. No one has ever won such an argument. Nor how to gag it by force, for force belongs to the same plane that produced the noise. The real question is this: what inner recognition ends mental warfare by returning us to presence? In other words, by what simple turning do we stop living from the mind and begin living from the presence that the mind can never manage nor comprehend? Watch out. I am speaking now from the standpoint of the infinite way, not psychology, not willpower. I am not asking you to add another technique to your collection, another affirmation to paste over the clamor. We are not here to stop thought by force. We are here to stop being hypnotized by thought, and that is a different thing entirely. You see, hypnosis says, this noise is me. This plan is my life. This fear is my future. Presence says, be still, I am. And between those two utterances stands your freedom. There is, as some of you will discover before this evening is through, a single sentence that, when understood and used rightly, ends the struggle in a moment and opens a door no hand can push. But hear me, it is not a charm, not a trick, not a bargaining chip with a reluctant God. It is a recognition, a gentle bow of the heart, that turns you from managing to being, from effort to receptivity. Never, never, never make of it a lever to move the world. It is a key that unlocks you. Now then, the noise in you is only telling you where you are leaning. When you try to sustain life with the mind must spin, because it was never designed to be governor. It was given as servant. And when servant crowns itself king, confusion follows. Do not call it wrong. A stage, that is all. In the next stage, consciousness remembers its source, and thought quiets as a lake in the evening, not because someone ironed the water, but because the wind ceased. So let us set our expectation aright. We are not promised a blank screen inside the head. We are promised contact. Contact with the presence that is peace itself. And when contact is made, quiet is not an achievement. It is a byproduct. Stay with me. We shall not fight. We shall turn. Now then, before we can make that turn in any practical way, we must settle one point without compromise. We must never use the words right and wrong about the activity of thought. Never, never, never. There are states and stages of consciousness, you see, and the racing mind is not a sin, it is a stage. The moment you pronounce it wrong, you create a second commotion, noise about noise, and now you have to live with two storms at once. You have the original chatter, and on top of it, the judge's gavel pounding out verdicts. You shouldn't be thinking. You failed again. What's wrong with you? Nothing is wrong. A stage, that is all. Watch the spiral as it commonly unfolds. First, the mind begins its recitation. Plans, defenses, comparisons. Next, you rise up to fight it, to push it down, to outshout it with better thoughts. Then, when that wrestling does not produce the stillness you hoped for, you turn the blade inward and condemn yourself for the wrestling. See what has happened? We have multiplied activity, thought, counterthought, judgment. We are exhausted not by thought alone, but by the war against thought and the self-accusation that follows. And for what? What are you trying to accomplish by thinking so furiously? What do you believe you can secure by managing every angle? What are you afraid will happen if you stop for 3 breaths and do nothing? Will the world fall apart if you, for a moment, refuse the post of universal superintendent? You see, in earlier stages of consciousness, analysis seems to be the only safety. We chart, we calculate, we tighten our grip and call it wisdom. In later stages, we discover that life is not maintained by our mental vigilance, but by a deeper law. Call it presence, spirit, the infinite, operating as order and sufficiency. And with that discovery, the individual's role changes, from governor to witness, from engineer to transparency, from loud manager to receptive servant. It is not passivity, it is receptivity. It is not indifference, it is trust in a law already present and already functioning. Now then, ask again, gently. What is the mind actually protecting? An image of yourself you fear will crack? A future you do not trust to the one that is already here? The mind is like a faithful watchdog. It barks at every leaf. Condemning the barking does not open the door to peace. It only adds your shouting to the noise. What opens the door is recognizing the dog is not the master of the house. In other words, we withdraw consent from its claim to authority. Here is the preview of our correction. The sentence I will give you is not to muzzle the mind, not to force silence as an outcome. It is the quiet acknowledgement that the mind is not the authority, and that presence is. Father, reveal thyself is not a trick to suppress a thought. It is a turning to the source before whom thought bows of itself. Use it so, and you will see how judgment falls away like armor you no longer need. The very instant you stop judging the mind, half the noise is gone. With the judge silent, you are free to make the true inner turn. Notice, turn, rest. And even if thinking flickers, it does so against a new backdrop. Receptivity. Nothing to fight, nothing to fix. Only the simple willingness to let presence be presence. Now then, let us look squarely at the great mistake, because until you see it, you will go round and round, sincerely, diligently, and without fruit. The great mistake is this: you try to achieve presence with the same faculty that lost it. You sit down to do stillness the way you would do a budget. You outline the perfect practice. How many minutes? Which chair? What breath count? What sequence of words? What particular result must show up by the clock or by the calendar? And, you see, the very movement of outlining is the movement away from presence. Watch out. The mind is subtle. It dresses up in spiritual clothing and calls itself a seeker. But it has only one instrument: effort. And effort cannot introduce you to what is already here. I have done it. I know the taste of that labor. You tighten the forehead, you narrow the attention, you try to hold one thought against the surge of 10,000. And for a moment, you may even succeed at a kind of narrow focus. But what have you gained? A strained mind congratulating itself on not thinking about very much. That is concentration. And let me say it kindly. Concentration is not communion. Concentration is mental effort. Communion is inner receptivity. One strains, the other yields. One tries to hold God, the other lets God be God. You must understand this if you are to be free of the warfare. Presence is not manufactured. Presence is not the prize at the end of a successful technique. Presence is what remains when the false claimant to authority, the mind set up as governor, is no longer being worshipped. In other words, the peace you seek is not the result of you winning against your thoughts. The peace you seek is the nature of the one you discover when you stop bowing to the mind's throne. Never, never, never attempt to use the mind to escape the mind. It is like climbing a ladder to reach the ground. Now, you may say, but what then of practice? Practice is not a way of getting. It is a way of yielding. Do not practice to get peace, relief, sensation, or result. The instant you practice to get, you are outlining. And the moment you outline, you are back on the human level, bargaining for effects and missing the cause. Practice, rightly understood, is the quiet willingness to be still without an object and to let presence announce itself. In this, we begin to use a different word. Contact. Not attainment, not achievement. Contact. Contact is not something you produce. It is the recognition of what is present when you stop insisting on being the superintendent of your own soul. And to help you make that pivot, away from mental management and toward inner recognition, I offer you a simple sentence, not as a tool to control the inner weather, but as a key you turn to face the light. Father, reveal thyself. Not give me quiet, not fix this thought. Father, reveal thyself. Then be still. You will discover that when the governor abdicates, the kingdom stands of itself. Now then, let us consider what we mean by prayer. Because if we keep the old meaning and merely add our sentence to it, we will be right back in the same room, under a different lamp. Prayer, to most of the world, is a reaching out to persuade a distant power to change conditions. Give me peace. Give me stillness. Give me a better mind. Watch out. That is the Santa Claus approach to God. And the moment you ask for an effect, you have left the cause. God is spirit. God is law as well as love. God is the very life that is being itself as your being. What is the use of asking God for anything? What would you tell God that God does not already know? You see, if the infinite is omnipresent, if the kingdom is within, we are not trying to bring God to us or to take us to God. We are to awaken to the presence already here. Not presence, but awareness. Not supply, but availability. Not words, but contact. Prayer, then, is not petition, not outline, not bargaining. Prayer is communion, a state of inner receptivity in which the mind yields its scepter and presence announces itself. Be still is not a hint to clench the jaw and hold the breath. It is the recognition that the government rests upon His shoulder, not upon your forehead. Seek first does not mean chase an outer improvement. It means turn within to the kingdom that is already your life. And all these things are added as expression, as fulfillment, added, not captured. So when you say, I want a quiet mind, you are already on the human level of effects. And even if you succeed in manufacturing a patch of quiet, it will be as fragile as spun glass. But if, instead, you desire only God, only contact, only communion, you find that quiet settles of its own nature because the source of quiet has been acknowledged. The goal is not a quieter mind. The The goal is God contact, and quiet follows. Never, never, never attempt to use prayer to get an outcome. Use prayer only to enter communion, and watch how harmony appears without your engineering. In my experience of years in this work, the click of recognition has never come as the result of persuasive words. It has come when words fell of themselves. And so, we employ words only as a dissolving recognition, not as an argument. Father, reveal thyself is not a sentence to change God or to change thought. It is the turning that abandons the mind's throne. Speak it softly, without urgency, not as a demand, but as a bow. And then let the words disappear into the very silence they point to. There, in that brief pause, you will know why prayer is wordless. Because the presence that is felt needs no describing and gives no explanations. It simply is, and in its isness, all the warfare ceases. Remember this law. Omnipresence is not availability until contact is made. The ocean may surround the fish, but the fish knows the water by being in it. So with us. We are not begging the sea to come. We are relaxing back into what already carries us. Be still. Turn within. Seek first. Father, reveal thyself. Then rest and let peace appear as the natural atmosphere of realized presence. Now then, here is the sentence. Let it be simple. Let it be honest. Father, reveal thyself. Do not rush past it. Do not dress it up. Father, by which we mean source, presence, the infinite that is the life of your life. Reveal thyself. The power is not in a theology of the word Father. The power is in the turn, in the surrender of authorship, in the admission that the mind cannot unveil reality to itself. You see, the mind can only show you its own pictures. Presence is not a picture. Presence is the living fact that outlives all pictures. Why does this work? Not because it argues with a thought. Not because it is stronger than a fear or brighter than a memory. It works because it is a relinquishment, a yielding of the scepter. In that quiet admission, I cannot make truth appear by thinking of it. You step off the throne you never truly occupied, and you face what already is. You are not summoning God. You are ceasing to enthrone yourself as governor. The sentence is a bow, and bows do not fight. Now, add to it, when you can, and only as recognition grows, this clause of purity. I need nothing. Hear me carefully. This is not a denial of human circumstances. You will still eat and pay rent and answer letters. It is a refusal to come to the altar as if it were a marketplace. It is the end of outlining. The moment you say, reveal thyself in order that I may get a quieter mind, or a solved problem, or a feeling, you have returned to the old economy. Never, never, never use this sentence to buy effects. Use it to stand in the light without a shopping list. How then to live with it? Gently, steadily. When the mind surges, do not lash it with this phrase. Do not turn it into a whip. Whisper it as a turning, and then let the whisper fall. Father, reveal thyself. Over and over and over again, not frantically, not to force a door, but as you might touch the rail walking in the dark, a quiet, faithful return, until the mind tires of being obeyed, and presence announces itself. If a moment passes with no apparent change, you see, nothing has failed. Your part is not production. Your part is recognition. And remember the boundary we set at the start. This is not an affirmation to make something happen. It is a recognition to let what is be known. We are not managing the inner weather with words. We are standing still long enough to feel the sun that never moved. Father, reveal thyself. I need nothing. In that atmosphere, thought loses its claim to govern, and awareness ripens from doctrine into the felt certainty of presence. Then, without your engineering, quiet appears as the natural fragrance of the one you have honored. Now then, let us make this so simple that you can carry it with you into a Monday morning as easily as into a quiet chair on Sunday night. There are 3 movements. Do not turn them into a ritual. Let them become a natural breath. When the mind attacks, when there is the rush of fear, the itch to control, the replay of a scene, the rehearsing of speeches you may never give, you do not enter the arena with it. You take the first movement. Movement 1. Notice. Merely see what is taking place and name it honestly, gently. This is mental activity, not danger, not destiny, not me. Mental activity. You see, the moment you call it wrong, you make a second storm. We must never use the words right and wrong about thought. There are states and stages of consciousness, and in some stages the mind is vigorous and noisy. Notice its momentum as you would notice waves on the surface of the sea, without blaming the sea for having a surface. No wrestling, no scolding, no vows to do better next time. Simply the clear admission, this is mental activity. Movement 2. Turn. Without pushing a single idea away, pivot the allegiance of your heart. Whisper inwardly, Father, reveal thyself. Say it as recognition, not as weapon, as a bow, not as a shove. You are not speaking to make thoughts stop. You are acknowledging the presence before which thought no longer claims the throne. If it is given, add the clause of purity, I need nothing, so that even your use of the sentence is clean of bargaining. And then let the words fall of themselves. If they return to you again in a minute, offer them again, not to grind away the mind, but to face the light, over and over and over, as often as turning is needed. Movement 3. Rest. After the sentence, allow a pause, even 2 seconds, the length of a soft exhale. Do not ask the pause to be anything. Silence is not emptiness. It is receptivity, a complete state of receptivity. Watch out here. The subtle temptation is to hunt for a feeling, to strain for proof that it worked, to peek inside and grade yourself on how quiet you are. Never, never, never measure this by sensation. If a thought drifts across, let it drift across the sky of that pause, while you remain at rest with the one you have just acknowledged. Now for the practice of it in the day's traffic. Use it in the car, eyes open, attention on the road. Notice the surge, turn with a soft, Father, reveal thyself, and rest for a breath at the red light. Use it in the hallway before a meeting, hand on the doorknob. Use it when you wake at night and the mind conducts its parade. Use it in the first heat of conflict, when you most believe you must argue to be safe, especially then, because that is when the turning is most needed. Use it between emails, between sentences, between bites. Let the day be beaded with tiny altars. And if you fail, if you find yourself trying to feel something, trying to stop thought, trying to have instant success. Recognize these as stages, not sins. Smile. Notice. Turn. Rest. The sentence is a pivot, not a lever. Your part is not production. Your part is recognition. In that faithful, repeated, unhurried pivot, the mind is gently relieved of its post, and presence assumes its rightful government without fanfare, without fireworks, and with a quiet that appears as naturally as evening follows afternoon. Now then, we must face a very subtle trap, and I call it subtle because it wears spiritual clothing and speaks our language. Watch out. It is the temptation to take this pure recognition, Father, reveal thyself, and turn it into another form of outlining. In other words, we whisper the sentence in order to get to sleep, or to make the telephone ring with an apology, or to soften a boss, or to quiet a panic by the minute hand. The moment you use the sentence to get an effect, you are back in petition and bargaining, and you have returned to the mind's economy. I give God words, God gives me outcomes. Never, never, never turn God into a means to your ends. God is not a supermarket, not a vending machine, not an anesthetic for inconvenient feelings. God is spirit, law as well as love, the very life that is your life, and the spiritual path does not seek God for effects. It seeks God as the end, and lets effects be added. You see, when the mind is still in office, it wants to use even holiness as leverage. If I say this rightly, then the room will calm. Or, if I hold perfectly still for 10 breaths, then they will change. Or, if I repeat it 40 times, surely sleep will come. That is outlining. That is making a private law. Do this, get that. And the instant you are outlining, you are down on the human level again, calculating, timing, measuring, rather than standing in recognition. We must never use the words right and wrong about this. It is a stage of consciousness, not a sin. But it is a stage to be seen and outgrown. How are you to know whether you have slipped into that economy? Ask yourself gently, without accusation. Am I repeating this to control life? Am I using it to escape a feeling I do not wish to allow? Am I demanding silence on my schedule, by my clock, in my terms? Am I aiming this sentence at another person so that they will be different by morning? If so, smile, see the stage, and take your hands off the machinery. Return to the purity of it. Father, reveal thyself. I need nothing. Then rest, even if the mind continues. I have no spiritual pride about this. I know where I am, and I know just where I am not yet. You need not be ashamed of noise. The practice is to continue turning without self-accusation. Here is the rule, and there can be no exception to the rule. The sentence is for contact only. The moment it becomes a tool for acquisition, it loses its spiritual potency, not because the words changed, but because you changed their purpose. Contact first, effects are added. Use the sentence as recognition, not request, as surrender, not strategy. And in that clean pivot, without bargaining, without timing God, you will find that quiet, order, and right action appear. Not because you extracted them, but because presence, once honored, reveals its own harmony. Now then, having kept the sentence clean of bargaining, let us bring into the room the very atmosphere in which presence is naturally felt. And that atmosphere is gratitude without an object. Watch out. I did not say gratitude for a result, or for a quieter mood, or for the easing of a symptom. That would be return to trade. Thank you for this. Now please add that. And at once we would be back in the mind's economy, counting and measuring. We must never use the words right and wrong about this. There are states and stages of consciousness, you see, and it is a stage to be grateful for gifts on the table. But here we are deepening. We are learning gratitude for the giver, not for the gift. Gratitude for the nature of presence itself, its isness, its lawfulness, its quiet sufficiency, regardless of the weather of the mind. Objectless gratitude changes consciousness, because it ends bargaining and begins worship in spirit and in truth. In other words, it is reverent receptivity. It does not tell God what to be, it beholds what God is. It does not say, "Since you calmed my fear, I am thankful," but rather, "Because thou art thou, my heart bows." And I tell you from experience, when that bow is real, no fireworks, no strain, the air changes. Nothing to get, something to yield to. You are not working on the mind. You are letting the mind be silent in the presence of what it cannot govern. Here is the gentle pairing, and make it simple. Say the sentence once or twice. Father, reveal thyself. I need nothing. And then stop speaking, and let a quiet feeling of gratitude rise. Not toward anything, not about anything, simply toward that which is. No words necessary, just the inner yes. Be very clear. This is not emotional excitement. It is not a pep rally in the chest. It is a settled appreciation of reality, a soft warmth of recognition like sunlight that needs no applause. Never, never, never measure it by thrills. If there is nothing to feel, do not go hunting. The gratitude can be as light as a feather resting on still water. Gratitude and love are the very mechanism of receptivity. They open the soul to the flow in the only way it can be opened, by consent, not by conquest. And as gratitude rises, the compulsion to think decreases of itself. Why? The mind is not being fed. You have withdrawn attention from its arguments and placed your heart where no argument is needed. It is as if an electric fan, loud in the corner, is suddenly unplugged. It does not need to be smashed. It winds down because the current, the fear and grasping that kept it spinning, has been cut off at the wall. Practice it in the smallest pauses. After the sentence at the kitchen sink, be still 3 seconds and let that quiet yes fill the space. In the car at the light, no words, only a slight inward bow. Not for this day, not for safety, not for the meeting to go well, simply for God being God. At your desk between messages, look nowhere, want nothing, and consent. You will notice that thought slackens without being ordered to stop. It has nothing to argue with. Presence begins to be recognized, not as a thought about God, but as the felt rightness of being. Keep it clean. If you catch yourself fastening gratitude onto an object, do not scold. See the stage, drop the object, and return to the purity. Father, reveal thyself. I need nothing. Then rest. In that climate, mental noise subsides, not by your victory, but by the simple fact that love has been honored and the soul has said yes. Now then, let us do this together. simply, without ambition. Sit as you are. Soften the eyes or close them lightly. Unclench the jaw. Let the shoulders drop from their posts. We are not going to succeed at anything. We are only turning. We are not here to make silence. We are here to cease making noise about noise and to stand at the door. Cycle 1. Very softly, as recognition and not request, let the words form within. Father, reveal thyself. That is all. No haste. Let the sentence end. Now then, be still for a few breaths, 10 seconds, perhaps 20. Do not chase a single thought. If a bird of thought flits by, let it fly. Do not evaluate the pause. Do not grade your stillness. Do not ask for a feeling. Simply rest, as if you had leaned your back against a tree already standing. Again. Father, reveal thyself. Not stronger, not better, just the same bow. Allow the words to fall away and let the quiet lengthen. Longer this time. The silence is not blankness, it is listening. It is not emptiness, it is receptivity. Now then, just be receptive. If a memory arises, let it cross the sky. The sky need not answer clouds. Let the breath come and go without instruction. Let awareness rest without a task. Once more. Father, reveal thyself. If it is given, add within the heart, I need nothing. Then allow silence again. Do nothing with it. In this quiet, let a faint undertone of gratitude appear. Gratitude without an object, a simple inner yes to that which is. Not excitement, not search, only consent. Notice, not by looking for proof, but by absence, that the inner argument lessens when there is nothing to argue with. Let that be enough. If thoughts continue, you see, this is not failure. We must never use the words right and wrong about what happens in the pause. There are states and stages of consciousness, and in some stages the surface is busy while the depths are calm. The only success here is the return. Over and over and over, the same rhythm. Notice, turn, rest. The sentence is a pivot, not a pry bar. Never. Never. Never measure by sensation or by the clock. Measure by the willingness to return without scolding. Now then, feel the law behind our practice. Presence is revealed in the pauses. The sentence is only the door, and silence is the entering. The words bow, the silence receives, the presence announces itself. Do not try to hold it, only honor it. And when, in a few moments, you rise to the next task of your day, carry this rhythm like breathing. A quiet turning, then a pause, and let the added piece appear of itself. Not manufactured, but recognized. Now then, what follows the click is not a parade of fireworks or a promise of perpetual bliss. It is a change of center. You find, often without noticing at first, that the government has shifted. The mind may still offer its headlines, but they are no longer executive orders. You see them as weather, not law. There is less hurry to settle life with a plan, less compulsion to reach for the wrench of thought at every creak of circumstance, more readiness to let a breath go by and to act from a quieter depth. The noise may still pass across the surface, states and stages of consciousness, remember, but there is a steadiness underneath, an ease in not rushing to be the superintendent of reality. Do not call what unfolds a miracle. God is a law as well as love, and harmony appears as a natural consequence of alignment. It is only to human sense that it looks extraordinary. When needs are met without strain, when timing fits without your clock keeping, when the right word is given at the right moment. In other words, you have not made the ocean flow, you have stepped back into it. It is as simple as removing the kink from a hose. The water was always there. Contact restores availability. And because it is lawful, it is trustworthy. You do not have to peek over your shoulder to see if the good will last. You return to contact and let the law be the law. Now then, about problems. You will still live your human day. You will still make calls, write letters, repair the hinge, consult a physician, balance a ledger. But when the center is presence instead of panic, steps are ordered differently. Ideas arrive that were not in the worry. One phone call replaces 10. A meeting that would have been battle becomes a quiet statement and a listening. You do not postpone action, you purify its source. You do not refuse help, you refuse fear as the foreman of your help. There is guidance, not as a voice dictating futures, but as a rightness felt in the heart and confirmed by the fruit, simplicity, sufficiency, and a noticeable absence of inner argument. Integration is very practical. Before you speak, one sentence, one pause, then the word that remains. Before you send the message, one sentence, one pause, then adjust the tone or delete the paragraph that belonged to yesterday's fear. At the doorway of a decision, one sentence, one pause, then the next clear step, only the next. In the car, in the stairwell, at the sink, between meetings. Thread the day with these small altars until the rhythm is not something you remember to do, but the way you live. This is not passivity. It is government by presence. You will notice that you react less and respond more, that there is space between stimulus and speech, and in that space, wisdom enters. Keep it simple. When noise rises, do not analyze it. Notice, turn, rest. Act from the quiet, then forget yourself and go on. And hear this as a loving rule of life. Never, never, never return to worshiping mental noise as authority. If it shouts, bow once more. Father, reveal thyself, and let the sentence fall into silence. Return again, and again, and again, until returning is your dwelling and harmony is the natural language of your day.